We are here today with the new Hyundai Stargazer X, and we are going to Clark just for a quick drive from Metro Manila. But this is our first time driving this new MPV, so let's see what it's all about. So I'm finally behind the wheel of the new Hyundai Stargazer X, and we are on Skyway Stage 3 en route to Clark. There are 5 of us here on board, and this is actually my first time driving this one, so I'm actually quite impressed. This is powered by a 1.5-liter gasoline engine that generates 113 horsepower and 144 Newton meters of torque. It's mated to Hyundai's intelligent variable transmission, which is basically a CVT, and it's pretty impressive. This is the same setup that's found in the Stargazer that actually won our big test in the past. And I have to say, it's quite impressive. First impressions, it has no problem pulling the weight. Whether we were going uphill, we were in standstill traffic, no problems whatsoever. Now, another impression I've gathered while driving this one, it actually looks pretty good looking at it from the back. It's much better than the standard Stargazer. But we'll talk about the exterior, we'll do a proper walk around once we get to our destination. We'll check back with you guys once we get to the pottery in Clark. Tama ba? Pottery Pampanga. About half an hour later and 73 kilometers driven, we're finally here at the Pampanga Pottery and Agritourism Park. Hindi pala siya the pottery, sorry. So, on the highway, this was a very, very impressive car. It was very comfortable. It was very easy to drive. The steering was very light, both on the highway and across tight spaces. The cruise control was working perfectly fine. The lane keep assist was surprisingly very aggressive, which is pretty helpful, especially for those who unfortunately often fall asleep on the road, like me. Anyway, going in here, we also drove through some tight roads, actually some rough terrain, if you would, and it was no problem for the Stargazer. And actually, we also drove through a river crossing of sorts. It was just a slightly flooded area, but it also goes to show that since you have 200 millimeters of ground clearance, it wasn't that deep, but it was very helpful that you have a high ground clearance. When you're driving through some similar floods in Metro Manila, it won't be a problem whatsoever. Now, as for fuel consumption, the gauge told us we were doing 14.8 kilometers per liter. Now, that was pretty okay because we had to deal with some slowdowns and some traffic once we exited San Simon. We're not gonna do a walk around just yet because we will be driving this all the way to Clark later. We'll probably do that tomorrow once everything's settled down. So for now, let's just head on inside and I don't know what's next. We're done with the Pampanga pottery and we actually painted some pots. Hindi kami naggawa ng sarili naming pot. Instead, they had us paint these. And this is my work of art. Anyway, enough of this garbage. So, we're on our way to our hotel in Clark and I'm here in the 3rd row, which is actually pretty comfortable. I have so much legroom and even if I have so much stuff here, it doesn't feel cramped at all. I actually forgot how it felt here because we did this during our last big test. But this right now is a proper road test. We're gonna get on the expressway later, and as far as I'm concerned, it's pretty comfy here. I'm gonna fall asleep in a bit, I'm sure. But for now, I guess that's it for the interior. We'll do a proper tour tomorrow of the exterior and the interior once we're at the hotel. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. It's a new day and the sun is out, it's terribly high, and we're here again with the new Stargazer X. Let's just take a look at this one and see how it differs from the regular Stargazer. Starting with the hood, you can see that there are more prominent lines here. It makes it look a bit more muscular than the Stargazer. It also has a more prominent 3-dimensional grille design. It has a much beefier look to it, and underneath you have this grille pattern echoes actually this one. And the bumper, meanwhile, it's slightly different from the Stargazers. It has a bulkier look to it. And speaking of bulkier and slightly more rugged, you can see more of these on the sides as you get these plastic underbody claddings. all the way from the front to the rear, and it also has a blacktop roof. It also sits on new 17-inch alloy wheels. It has a slightly different design from that of the Stargazer. It has a more prominent two-tone finish, and it actually looks pretty good. This one also has a slightly higher ground clearance. The Stargazer has 185 millimeters of ground clearance. This Stargazer X has 200 millimeters. At the rear, the differences are more noticeable because this one looks a lot more rugged than the Stargazer, thanks of course to this black plastic underneath and this ridged black trim just underneath the light bar. Now yesterday, I was sitting in the third row. Let me show you now just how easy or difficult it is to get in the back seat. So the thing with the second row seats is that it has a one-touch tumble feature. You just lift the lever and it just folds like so. So there you go. And now at the back, let's just pull this up just to see how much space I have. I actually slid this back a bit. Anyway, I have a lot of room here and I have some amenities. I have a cup holder. I have a small cubby here for phones, for wallets, and I have a 12-volt socket on the right side. Now, that's the third row. Let's check out the front. So we're here in the driver's seat now, and just a couple of things before we begin. Sorry, nakababa to. The sun is just too high right now and sobrang init. And sound deadening here is really, really impressive. May nagli-leaf blower sa labas, and the moment we close the doors, ang tahimik dito sa loob, which is actually pretty cool. Anyway, moving on here. So the layout is basically carried over, but the biggest change here is this. The housing of the entire dash, the instrument cluster, and the infotainment system is now gloss black. It's no longer that plasticky. Sorry, it felt a bit cheap in the regular Stargazer, but this one just looks better. It's much more premium, and if you didn't like that one in the old Stargazer, this is what you get. This is the updated version that was shown at Gaikindo last year. As I said, the layout is basically the same. You still have AC vents here, and you still have this large opening here underneath. And that's what I liked about the Stargazer. It has just so many storage spaces. Apart from this, you have a small cubby here, which is also the wireless charger. You have a cubby here, just behind the parking brake, and you even have a small cubby here on the left side of the driver, just behind the steering wheel. And that's actually pretty cool. You have so many spaces to store your wallet, your phone, just your everyday things. Now here, you have this fully digital instrument cluster that can be navigated through the steering wheel mounted controls. You also have controls for the cruise control and the lane keep assist here on the steering wheel. This, by the way, also comes with forward collision warning, lane departure warning, among many other safety features. Now as for this one, this head unit still comes with Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay, which is actually pretty useful because I was sitting at the back yesterday and I was performing DJ duties from the third row. That's actually pretty nice. Underneath, you have the AC controls here. It's also housed in a new gloss black plastic panel. And if you think about it, it's not that big of a change, but it just does so much for the interior. It just feels a lot more premium. Underneath, you have the USB-A charging port, the 12-volt socket, and you have the same gear shift lever, and you have the drive mode controls here. By the way, you have 4. There's Eco, there's Normal, Sport, and Smart. Yesterday, we were just driving with normal mode on, so yeah, that's that. You also have 2 cup holders here and a sizable storage underneath the center armrest. So I guess it's time to check out the second row. Let's go. So I'm now here in the second row, and as you can see, I have slightly little leg room, but that's because this is positioned in a way that I could fit perfectly fine in the back. You can actually slide this forward or back to open up leg room. So as you can see, it's much more comfy now. This one, by the way, is also slid a bit to the back, so that's that. Now you get a few amenities here. You have storage spaces here. You have 2 USB-A charging ports, and behind the driver's seat, you have 2 small pockets. And here on the passenger seat, you have a tray. This is actually available in the Stargazer as well. Maximum 3.5 kilograms, and you have a cup holder here. Your regular bottles will not fit here, but you have bottle holders on both doors. You also have a small cubby for phones, for wallets, and bottle holders just below. You also have dedicated AC controls here. So Rear passengers won't have any problems if it's a bit hot, just like today. So there you have it, the new Hyundai Stargazer X. It's the beefier, bulkier version of the Stargazer we know. And it's got a comfy ride, it's got a punchy engine, and it's got a price tag that sits at the top of the range at 1,348,000 pesos. Now you tell us, is this worth your consideration?